Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. You're watching Anime Octopus, the place where imagination reshapes the anime world through powerful fanfiction stories and alternate timelines. Today's fanfic explores a question that could have completely changed the Land of Waves arc and Naruto's journey forever. What if Naruko saved Haku? A single decision, a different encounter, and the fate of Haku, Zabuza, and Team 7th of May never be the same again. Before we begin, here's a quick disclaimer. This video is made purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any anime footage, music, or characters used in this content. All credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now then, sit back, relax, and let's dive into the story. October 10th was a day every citizen of Konohagakure remembered with deep emotion. It was the day the fourth Hokage had protected the village from the mighty nine-tailed fox. Lanterns glowed softly through the streets each year as families gathered to honor the brave people who had helped save their home. For many villagers, it was a time of remembrance and gratitude. Yet not everyone carried kindness in their hearts. Some people, blinded by fear and old rumors, unfairly blamed a young girl named Naruko Uzumaki for things she had never done. Naruko was only 6 years old. That evening, she hurried through the narrow streets, her small sandals pattering against the stone paths as cold autumn wind tugged at her bright blonde hair. Her blue eyes darted left and right, searching for somewhere safe to hide. "Why do they always chase me?" she whispered sadly to herself. "I just want to live peacefully." The marketplace lights faded behind her as she slipped into the quiet forest beyond the village walls. Her breathing grew shaky, and finally she stumbled beside a large tree, exhausted from running. The sounds of angry voices echoed through the woods. "There she is. Don't let her get away." Naruko hugged her knees tightly. She was frightened, but somewhere deep inside her heart, a tiny spark refused to go out. Even after all the loneliness, she still dreamed of becoming Hokage someday so everyone would finally see her for who she truly was. A girl who cared. A girl who would never give up. Slowly, Naruko stood up and brushed dirt from her orange jacket. Her legs trembled, but she lifted her chin bravely. "I'm not running anymore," she declared, though her voice quivered. Naruko Uzumaki isn't afraid. The forest suddenly grew strangely quiet. Then, a warm breeze swirled around her. Golden leaves lifted from the ground and danced through the air like tiny stars. Naruko blinked in surprise as the world around her faded into darkness filled with glowing orange light. "Hello?" she called softly. A deep voice rumbled gently through the glowing space. "Little one." Naruko looked around carefully but saw only enormous golden eyes shining in the dark. Strangely, they did not frighten her. "You have a strong heart," the voice continued. "Even after being hurt, you still dream of protecting others." Naruko swallowed nervously. "Who are you?" The great eyes softened. "I am Kurama," the voice answered. "And I have watched you for a very long time." Naruko tilted her head. "You know my name?" A low chuckle echoed warmly. "Of course I do, Naruko." For the first time in as long as she could remember, someone had spoken her name kindly. Tears gathered in her eyes before she quickly wiped them away. I don't want people to be scared of me anymore." Kurama was silent for a moment. "Fear can make people forget kindness," she said gently. "But your kindness is your greatest strength. Never lose it." Naruko listened carefully. The warm orange light began to wrap around her like a soft blanket, filling her tired body with new energy. "You have power inside you," Kurama continued. "Not power meant to hurt others, but power to protect, to help, and to shine brightly even in dark times." Naruko placed a hand over her heart. The warmth there felt comforting, like sunlight on a cold morning. "Do you really think I can become Hokage someday?" she asked quietly. Kurama laughed softly again. "I think," she replied, "that you will become someone even greater than you imagine." Far away, beyond the trees, the angry voices slowly faded as villagers gave up searching and returned home. But beneath the moonlit forest, a lonely little girl no longer felt quite so alone. Naruko smiled for the first time that night. And high above the hidden leaf village, the stars shimmered brightly, as if the whole sky believed in her future too. The moon hung low above the forest, silver light shining softly through the trees. A small girl with bright blonde hair lay curled beside a tree trunk, her clothes torn and dusty from a long and difficult evening. Her name was Naruko, and although her body ached, her spirit still flickered brightly inside her heart. Around her, angry voices echoed through the woods. "Stay back. She's dangerous." The frightened crowd slowly crept closer, but Naruko pushed herself upright with trembling arms. Her blue eyes glimmered, not with hatred, but with sadness and determination. She did not understand why so many people feared her. She had never wanted to hurt anyone. More than anything, she simply wanted someone to smile at her kindly. A deep wind rushed through the trees, making the leaves dance around her. Naruko wiped dirt from her cheek and took a shaky breath. "I'm not a monster," she whispered. The people hesitated. For a moment, the forest became very quiet. Then, frightened by what they did not understand, the villagers slowly backed away. One by one, they disappeared into the darkness until only the sound of rustling leaves remained. Naruko slid down against the tree again, exhausted. She stared up at the stars peeking through the branches overhead. "Why is it so hard for everyone to believe me?" she asked softly. But the night gave no answer. XXX. Far away, inside a cozy little hotel near the edge of town, a young traveler named Jushiro sat awake beneath the warm glow of a lantern. A thick orange book rested in his hands while the quiet crackling of the fireplace filled the room. In the next room, Winry and her grandmother Pinako were already asleep after a long day of traveling. Jushiro turned a page, but suddenly paused. A strange feeling drifted through the air outside, not evil, not frightening, but lonely. Deeply lonely. Curious and concerned, Jushiro closed his book and stood. He slipped on his coat and quietly headed outside beneath the cool night sky. "I'll just take a quick look," he murmured. XXX. Back in the forest, Naruko struggled to remain awake. Her eyelids felt heavy, and her breathing had slowed. Then, snap! A branch cracked nearby. Naruko's head jerked upward. From the shadow stepped a stern-looking shinobi wearing a dark vest and carrying a sword at his side. His face was cold, but Naruko noticed something else hiding behind his expression. Fear. "You should never have been born," the man muttered harshly. Naruko shrank back against the tree. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said quietly. But the shinobi did not listen. Before he could step closer, another voice suddenly rang through the forest. "That's enough." Jushiro burst through the trees and planted himself firmly between Naruko and the shinobi. His red eyes were calm but serious. "She's just a child," he said. The shinobi frowned. "Move aside." "No." The forest grew still once more. For several long seconds, nobody moved. Then the shinobi scoffed, turned sharply, and disappeared into the darkness, unwilling to continue the confrontation. The moment he was gone, Naruko finally relaxed. The strength left her legs, and she nearly toppled over before Jushiro gently caught her. "Easy there," he said kindly. Naruko blinked up at him in surprise. She was not used to hearing kindness directed at her. "You helped me?" "Of course," Jushiro replied. "No one deserves to be alone out here." Naruko stared at him silently, unsure what to say. Jushiro noticed the scratches on her arms, the worn sandals on her feet, and the exhaustion written across her face. His expression softened. "You must be starving." Naruko's stomach growled immediately, making both of them pause. Then Jushiro laughed warmly. A tiny smile tugged at Naruko's lips for the very first time that night. "Come on," he said, helping her to her feet. Let's get you somewhere safe. Together, the two disappeared down the forest path beneath the moonlight, while far above them the stars continued to shine quietly over the sleeping village. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage, stood quietly at the window of the Hokage Tower on the calm morning of October 11th. The golden sunlight stretched across the rooftops of the village, but the old leader could not enjoy the peaceful view. He let out a weary sigh as he held his pipe in one hand. "I am getting far too old for this," he murmured softly. Normally, after the troubling events that always seemed to follow October 10th, an Anbu messenger would arrive quickly to report on Naruko Uzumaki's condition. Yet this morning, no summons had come. The silence left him uneasy. Had the spirited young girl finally managed to avoid danger for once? Or had something far worse happened? Before he could think further, a sudden swirl of leaves danced through the office. A familiar figure appeared in an instant, a tall shinobi wearing a dog-shaped mask. "Kakashi," Hiruzen greeted quietly. "You bring serious news." The silver-haired ninja lowered his head respectfully. "Yes, Hokage-sama. It concerns Naruko." Hiruzen's expression tightened. "She is in the hospital?" Kakashi nodded. "She is awake now, but she was badly hurt. The healers worked through the entire night." For a moment, the old Hokage simply closed his eyes. Naruko was still only a child. "Thank you, Kakashi," he said gently. "You should rest now." "Yes, Hokage-sama." With another swirl of wind and leaves, Kakashi disappeared. Hiruzen stood alone once more. "Minato. Kushina," he whispered sadly. "Your daughter deserves kindness. I only hope this village learns that before it is too late." Without another word, he turned and made his way toward the hospital. XXX. Far away from the waking world, Naruko found herself standing in a strange place filled with endless white light. It stretched in every direction like soft clouds beneath a summer sky. Ahead of her stood an enormous gate covered in swirling markings. Slowly, the great doors creaked open. Warm laughter drifted from the darkness beyond. She heard cheerful voices, gentle music, and the comforting sounds of people welcoming her forward. Naruko took a hesitant step. Then another. "At least nobody can hurt me here," she whispered quietly. The giant gate began to close behind her, but before it could shut completely, another voice echoed through the white space. "Oh no you don't, little kid. Your story is only beginning." A warm swirl of crimson energy wrapped around her like a blanket fluttering in the wind. It felt powerful, but strangely comforting. The voice spoke again, softer this time. "You still have dreams waiting for you. Rest for now, Naruko. When the time comes, stand tall and keep smiling." The red light gently guided her away from the gate. As sleep carried her off once more, she thought she heard a deep chuckle filled with pride. XXX. Naruko slowly opened her bright blue eyes. White ceiling. White curtains. A hospital room. She groaned softly and sat up a little too quickly. Ow. Her body felt sore all over, but something else immediately caught her attention. Her right arm felt strangely light. Looking down carefully, she froze. Her arm was gone from the shoulder down. For several long seconds, the room became completely silent. Tears gathered in her eyes before she could stop them. She hugged herself tightly with her remaining arm, trying very hard not to cry too loudly. Just then, the hospital door opened. 3 unfamiliar visitors stepped inside. The first was a small elderly woman with silver hair tied neatly into a bun. Though short in height, she carried herself with calm confidence. Beside her stood a cheerful blonde girl wearing a light blue dress, and next to them was a tall white-haired boy with kind red eyes. The older woman smiled warmly. "Well now," she said kindly, "it is good to see you awake, young lady. The doctors said you would need much longer to recover." The white-haired boy grinned. "You had everyone worried, kid. I'm glad you pulled through." Naruko blinked in surprise as he gently ruffled her hair. The blonde girl stepped forward with a small wave. "My name is Winry Rockbell," she said brightly. "This is my grandmother, Pinako, and this big guy is Jushiro." "I am absolutely heroic," Jushiro added proudly. That earned a small laugh from Naruko despite everything. "I'm Naruko Uzumaki," she replied quietly. "Nice to meet you." Her smile faded as she glanced toward her missing arm. The room grew quiet again. But instead of staring at her sadly, the three visitors simply stayed close. Winry sat beside the bed carefully. "You know," she said gently, "just because something changes doesn't mean your adventures are over." Naruko looked up slowly. Pinako nodded in agreement. "A strong heart matters far more than strong arms or legs," the elderly woman said. "And yours seems very strong already." Before Naruko could answer, the door opened once more. Hiruzen Sarutobi entered the room. The old Hokage's face softened immediately when he saw her awake. "Naruko," he said warmly, "I am very glad to see you." She gave a small smile. "Hey, old man." Hiruzen walked closer, his eyes briefly noticing her injury. Sadness flickered across his face, but he quickly hid it behind a calm expression. "What happened last night?" he asked gently. "Only tell us what you are comfortable sharing." Naruko took a deep breath and explained everything she remembered. As she spoke, the room became very still. Winry's eyes watered with sympathy. Jushiro crossed his arms quietly, listening carefully. Pinako shook her head with concern. When Naruko finished, Hiruzen lowered his gaze. "I am sorry, Naruko," he said sincerely. "You should have been protected better." Naruko stared at the blanket for a moment before shrugging slightly. "Well? I'm still here." The old Hokage smiled softly at her courage. "Yes," he agreed. "And that matters very much." Winry suddenly leaned forward and wrapped Naruko in a careful hug. "You are not alone anymore," she said. Naruko blinked in surprise. No one had hugged her like that in a very long time. Slowly, a genuine smile spread across her face. For the first time in many years, the hospital room no longer felt cold. "Automail?" Sarutobi repeated, his brows lifting with cautious hope. Pinako nodded calmly and tapped the side of her pipe against the ashtray beside her chair. "A mechanical limb designed to move like a real arm. It connects to the body and responds to the user's muscles and nerves. It takes patience, training, and maintenance, but if Naruko is willing to work hard, she could still live the life she dreams of." The office fell silent. Jushiro blinked twice before leaning forward so quickly he nearly fell out of his seat. Wait, so she could still become a ninja?" "Potentially," Pinako answered. "Though it would not be easy." Winry suddenly stood up, her eyes sparkling with determination. "Grandma's the best engineer I know. If anyone can make an arm for Naruko, it's us." Sarutobi stared at the pair for several long moments. Outside the office window, the Hidden Leaf village bustled beneath the warm afternoon sun, unaware that hope had just returned to one stubborn little girl lying in the hospital. "At her age," he murmured softly. "To endure all of this and still dream of protecting the village." His expression gentled. "Naruko has always surprised me." Jushiro crossed his arms and grinned. "Yeah, she's kind of impossible to keep down." "That," Sarutobi admitted with a tired chuckle, "is certainly true." Pinako rose carefully from the couch. "I'll need proper tools, clean materials, and a workspace. If your village can provide those, Winry and I can begin planning immediately." "You shall have whatever you require," Sarutobi replied without hesitation. Winry pumped a fist into the air. "All right. We'll make Naruko the coolest arm ever." Pinako gave her granddaughter a look. "Functional first. Stylish second." "Aw." Even Sarutobi smiled at that. For the first time since the terrible incident, the heavy feeling inside the room began to lift. The future was still uncertain, and the road ahead would not be simple, but a small light had appeared in the darkness. And for Naruko Uzumaki, even the tiniest spark of hope could grow into something bright enough to change the world. Automail is an advanced prosthetic, Winry explained in a calm, practical voice. Instead of a regular replacement arm, she'll be able to move it almost like a real one. It's strong too, so if Naruko wants to become a ninja someday, it could really help her. Without anyone noticing, the third Hokage's expression softened as he fully understood the situation. Very well, Sarutobi said kindly. I imagine a procedure like this is expensive. Send me the cost, and I will make sure everything is taken care of. Pinako waved a hand dismissively. Oh, nonsense. A child who has gone through so much deserves a fair chance at her dream. There will be no charge. With that settled, the group returned to the hospital to share the news with Naruko. XXX. When they entered Naruko's room, they found her exactly where they had left her. She stared quietly at the ceiling, looking smaller than usual beneath the blankets. Losing hope had drained all her energy. Sarutobi stepped forward first. Naruko, he said gently, we have good news. There may be a way for you to have a fully functioning arm again. Naruko blinked in surprise. She had seen ordinary prosthetics before. In a ninja village, injuries were sadly common, and many shinobi returned from missions missing limbs. The replacements she had seen helped people manage daily life, but they never seemed suited for the fast, demanding life of a ninja. Thank you, old man, she replied quietly, but regular prosthetics wouldn't let me become a ninja. I need a real arm for that. What is with everyone thinking that? Winry suddenly exclaimed, startling Naruko. Earlier, the blonde mechanic had only offered a few quiet words of comfort. Automail isn't some clunky piece of junk, Winry continued, folding her arms confidently. It can move naturally, it's durable, and in some ways it's even better than an ordinary arm. Naruko sat up a little straighter. Pinako and Winry pulled over chairs and carefully explained everything, how Automail worked, what made it special, and how it could support Naruko's dream of becoming a shinobi. They also honestly described the difficult attachment process and the pain involved. Even so, by the end of the explanation, Naruko's blue eyes were shining with excitement. And that's about it, Winry finished. It'll move almost like your old arm. Just with a little more metal. Naruko practically bounced upright. Really? Then sign me up. She exclaimed, grinning from ear to ear. This is amazing. I'll be able to train again. The third Hokage looked at her carefully. Naruko, are you absolutely certain? He asked. The process will be very painful. Naruko nodded firmly. If it means I can keep chasing my dream, then I can handle it. XXX. Several hours later, Naruko lay exhausted in bed, her voice scratchy from crying out during the surgery. Even though the procedure had been successful, attaching Automail to the body was incredibly difficult. Winry and Jushiro had stayed nearby the entire time, encouraging her whenever they could. Now the room was finally quiet again. Jushiro leaned against the wall with a crooked smile. You know, for someone so small, you sure can yell loudly. Naruko groaned weakly into her pillow. It hurt. I know, he said more gently. Honestly, you were very brave. A lot of adults struggle through that surgery too. Naruko slowly sat up, looking down at her blanket. Jushiro. Why did all of you help me? She asked softly. Most people avoid me or ignore me. But you barely knew me, and you still saved me. Jushiro's expression changed immediately. Naruko, he said, you're a kid. Helping you was the right thing to do. Nobody should have to face hard times alone. He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder and gave her a warm grin. And besides, you're stronger than you think. For a moment, Naruko simply stared at him. Then, slowly, she smiled back, a real smile this time. Thanks, she whispered. Get some rest, Squirt, Jushiro said cheerfully as he headed for the door. Next time I visit, I expect to see you showing off that new arm. Naruko laughed quietly as he left the room. For the first time in a long while, hope no longer felt far away. XXX. Hiruzen Sarutobi had faced countless dangers during his long life as Hokage. He had battled powerful enemies, protected the village through difficult times, and survived challenges that would frighten most people. Yet there was still one opponent he could never truly defeat. Paperwork. Towering stacks of documents covered his desk like mountains. The old Hokage sighed deeply and reached for another form just as the office door burst open. "Old man. I need to talk to you." The next few days were peaceful ones for Naruko as she stayed with the Rockbells and Jushiro in their cozy hotel rooms. Winry carefully helped her adjust to her new arm, teaching her how to clean it, polish the joints, and move her fingers smoothly. Jushiro tagged along for nearly everything, helping her pick out new clothes and making sure she never felt left out or uncomfortable. One quiet afternoon, the three of them sat together while rain tapped softly against the windows. Naruko lounged across the bed with a grin on her face while Winry organized tools nearby. Jushiro leaned back in a chair, arms folded. "So, Naruko," he began, raising an eyebrow, "why do you want to become a ninja anyway? You're tough, sure, but that road takes real dedication." Naruko puffed out her cheeks dramatically. "Hey, I can be serious when I want to," she said proudly. Then her grin returned. "But if life is always serious, where's the fun in that?" Jushiro chuckled quietly. Naruko tilted her head curiously. "Besides, you're the weird one here. How are you so strong already? You're barely older than me." Jushiro let out a long sigh as if carrying the weight of the world. "Well," he said, "when old Lady Pinako sends you carrying giant bags, boxes, and tools every single day, you either become strong or collapse dramatically in the street." Winry giggled behind her toolbox. "That's only half true. He also eats enough food for 3 people. That is called proper training fuel," Jushiro declared proudly. Naruko burst into laughter. "No wonder you're built like a giant tree trunk." Jushiro pointed at her accusingly. "And yet somehow you eat even more ramen than I do." "That's different," Naruko said confidently. "Ramen gives me ninja power." Winry shook her head with an amused smile. "I'm pretty sure that's not how it works." For a while the room filled with laughter. It was warm and easy, the kind of happiness Naruko wasn't used to. No one looked at her strangely. No one whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. For the first time in a long while, she simply felt like a normal girl. After the laughter settled down, Naruko looked toward Jushiro more seriously. "Hey. Thanks again," she said quietly. "For helping me. For staying around." Jushiro blinked before smiling softly. "No problem, kid." Naruko frowned immediately. "I'm not a kid." "Sure you aren't," he teased. She tossed a pillow at him. Jushiro laughed and reached into his bag before tossing a rolled-up scroll onto the bed beside her. "What's this?" Naruko asked. "My personal code," he said proudly. "Words to live by." Naruko opened the scroll carefully. At the top, written in large bold letters, were the words, "Jushiro Moyomoto's Code of Greatness." Naruko snorted with laughter immediately. "You named it that yourself?" "Of course," Jushiro replied. "Greatness doesn't name itself." Still giggling, Naruko continued reading. "Protect those around you. Strength means nothing unless you use it to help people. Reach out to others whenever you can. Even someone lonely or angry may simply need kindness. Keep moving forward. Mistakes happen, but they do not decide your future. Learn from them, stand back up, and continue walking toward tomorrow. Avoid people with terrible attitudes. If someone spends all day bragging, showing off, and making everyone miserable, it is usually best to walk away and enjoy your own happiness instead." Naruko read the scroll twice before lowering it slowly. Huh, she said. That's actually really nice. Jushiro placed a hand against his chest dramatically. You doubted my wisdom? A little. A tragedy. Winry smiled warmly as she watched them bicker. Naruko folded the scroll carefully and held it close. Deep down, she knew she would remember those words for a very long time. Naruko always believed that the way someone introduced herself mattered. A first impression could stay in a person's heart for a very long time. Because of that, she tried her best to be honest, cheerful, and true to herself. She knew that not everyone in the world would agree with her or understand her, and that was perfectly fine. What mattered most was treating others kindly and showing respect whenever she could. Dear YouTube family, this is all for now. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more content. Thank you for your support and encouragement. See you in the next video. Regards, Anime Octopus.